Since we are an educational institution, we conduct a lot of learning and development initiatives. So this is just for information. We have one program in certificate course in integrated digital intensive care management, which is starting on 21st July. Then we have a course on professional practice in healthcare insurance, which is commencing on 19th July. This will be a 10-day course. And this intensive digital care intensive management is going to be a 6 month course for us. Besides this, we also conduct a lot of webinars. So like Master Stroke is one of the series we regularly conduct for our students and for the industry participants on various themes around healthcare, the evolving trends and technologies. Then there is another webinar called Ignited Minds, in which we discuss the success stories of the industry stalwarts. Now coming to the most important part, our speakers of the day. So today we have with us Dr. Usha Manjunath. Dr. Usha Manjunath is Director and Professor of IHMR Bangalore. She is a PhD in management from BITS Pilani and with more than 20 years of experience as a management faculty. Dr. Usha Manjunath has a unique experience in allied health, disability communication, and entrepreneurship management. She has a lot of articles being published besides this being articles, there is also a book on total quality services in healthcare, which was published in 2012. And she has also been awarded as Bharat Ratna Indira Gandhi Gold Medal Award for Excellence in 2018. Welcome, Dr. Usha Manjunath. Our next speaker is Dr. Uma Nair. Dr. Uma Nair is currently the Executive Director of Jim Care Hospital and also a chairperson of DH India Association. She is, I would say, a blend of clinical and management because she is actually a MCH in neurosurgery, and she has also done a master's in healthcare and business administration with more than 20 years of experience in strategic consulting, healthcare policies, commissioning new hospitals, process re-engineering existing hospitals, process standardizations, and quality in healthcare. She also is acting as a Vice President of Telemedicine Society of India and also knowledge partner of AHPS, besides being associated with many bigger organizations like Ministry of Health in Africa, then Hemas Hospital in Sri Lanka. I welcome you, Dr. Uma Nair. Our next speaker is Mr. Shafi Ahmed. Mr. Shafi is a successful entrepreneur, a BE in electronics and communication engineering. He has worked with HP as a software engineer, co-founded Techno Dreams in 2002, and leading the organization which has 600 plus consumers and 200 plus employees as of now. In 2009, he launched Sapphire IMS, which is a platform for IT operations and automation, and also ventured into healthcare IT from 2015 onwards. In 2019, he launched HX Central IT platform. Welcome, Mr. Shafi Ahmed. Our next speaker is Mr. Baiju. Mr. Baiju is experienced in business transformation and product management. He has done academics on electronics and telecommunication. Earlier, he has also worked with Wipro Limited in various roles for nearly 18 years, technology support and management process, pre-sales and solutions. He joined Techno Dreams in 2016, and right now he's leading HX Central as Vice President. So I welcome all the speakers and our participants to this forum once again.
Clinical quality, and clinical quality comes from, of course, clinical procedures and so on. And then if I see the procedures, say I register, I go for consultation, I go for diagnostics. So all this has to be streamlined and done in a very good fashion. So those are my operations quality aspects. So there is clinical quality, operations quality, and then the service aspect. So there are certain expectations. Patients also go to the hospital.
Yes, sir. You can continue. You can ask the question to the next.
Yeah, so I think I'm sorry. I mean, there was some technical issue. We could not connect to Dr. Usha Manjunath. Yeah. So so we were just discussing about the patient management importance, and Usha ma'am was just telling something about that. So Uma ma'am, I mean, I would like to ask you basically that when we talk about the patient management and patient expectations, so what are the existing challenges which you have seen in the healthcare settings when it comes to managing the patient experience and expectations?
So,
Are there any?
yeah, so let me tell you that, the expectation that the patient has not changed in terms of what they expect. They expect quality and they expect excellent quality, which Usha was just alluding to, whether it is clinical or the non-clinical processes in the hospital. And they expect that at, I wouldn't say cheap, but at least a reasonable cost. Okay, so this has been the overriding expectations. What has changed and what is changing rapidly is the speed of the expectation. Right now, if they expect everything to be the information overload which they carry, which they come to the hospital with, and the amount of information that they have is so much that they expect the answers much more rapidly. They expect a very high level of quality, and the value for money which the patient has today is far more enhanced than what it was, say, 20 years ago or 10 years ago. So the language in which they speak to a healthcare organization has also changed because of this. Because of, like say 20 years ago, if I wanted to tell a patient that, hey, look, these are the side effects of the surgery and this is what will happen, they would say, Dr. Saab, you just operate, don't worry about anything. Whereas today, they would want to know every single thing. And even after the information is completely given, we need to make sure that it is communicated again and again to them. So the key thing that happens now is, and every individual patient comes, the level of expectation is therefore very high. The communication has to be far more than just once before admission and once at the time of discharge. So the key to meet the patient expectations today is to continuously and for each individual patient, the expectation is different. And the organization has to be prepared to have sufficient teams to manage this communication with the patient and to ensure that every patient goes happy. Because the aim that every organization today has is that each patient that goes satisfied, and that you have a good feedback from the patient. So that is a challenge that you have to meet with far more in terms of communication than what we did before.
Great, ma'am. So somewhere they come with a particular mindset. They have already been loaded with a lot of information. This earlier they were seeking from the healthcare provider, but now it's available right then. And ma'am, any effect have you noticed, like a drastic change or maybe subtle change after the COVID-19? Yes. I mean, because there.
Yes, of course. So what COVID-19 has done is turned everybody into a digital citizen right away. Right? Today, everybody is, very digital conscious. Dr. Google was always there, but now it is more than any other doctor. So they refer to all these, documents before they come. And I mean, I have seen even 20 years ago, patients coming with printouts, which are this thick and saying, doctor, I hope you have read all this because you're going to operate on my mother tomorrow, right? Forgetting the fact that we have studied for 13 years, at least 1,300 times more than what that document was. But today, the information as well as the misinformation is both very high. See, whatever people read on the internet is not necessarily true. Now, not every patient goes to an information website from, let's say, a reputed hospital. They do not go to a Mayo Hospital, Mayo Clinic site or an All India Institute site. They go to blogs. Most of the times, who writes these blogs? A disappointed patient's relative. A happy patient's relative hardly writes a blog. Okay, So the misinformation that people carry, and we have a tendency to read misinformation. The bad news attracts us more. So patients come with that misconceived notion about a procedure, about doctors, about hospitals. And so they are already, have that thinking, whatever is going to happen to me is probably not going to be right. And they come with that very defensive, or they come with an offensive attitude. The healthcare organization becomes defensive in turn, and it sets a relationship in a, on a bad starting point. So that's not really the right way to do. So we have to really spend a lot of energy to put this misinformation to right information to the patient, to really educate them. The doctor, the nurses, I mean, sometimes we have other caregivers whose job is to counsel the patient correctly. So this communication job is a little tougher nowadays because of the background of misinformation which they carry. So they come with that baggage to the hospital most of the times. So this is a challenge.
Thank you, ma'am. So I'll come back to how to mitigate it with the technology. I will talk to Mr. Shafi. But before that, we are joined by Dr. Usha Manjunath. So, Dr. Usha, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Yes.
Yeah, ma'am. So we were just discussing with Dr. Uma about the challenges which have cropped up since post-COVID time about the management of patient experience and expectations. So I would request you to please, just take us a bit back and talk about the importance of patient experience and expectation in a healthcare setting.
Yeah, I was also listening to Dr. Uma, and like rightly she said, there could be excess information, the right set of information, which sets our experience and also maybe the expectations. So let us say, for example, if I go to a hospital, everybody with the doctor, the nurse, whoever the treating team, and the patient and the family wants to, the foremost thing is that we get well. So, in terms of how we actually do, is something that really helps us to really move ahead. So in terms of service, my expectations are set by my previous experience, maybe, what happened when I went in the previous time, or maybe I have traveled abroad and I set my expectations very differently, or maybe I have seen others being treated in a particular fashion, and therefore I set my expectations, realistically or sometimes unrealistically. So this would probably create problems. So whenever we look at, what is the patient satisfaction, what are the expectations, what is the value that a particular hospital can deliver. And these, of course, have changed over a period of time. People have more information, people have more expectations and demands, and sometimes there could be unrealistic demands too, like Dr. Uma was saying. So this now to be managed, people are also getting more and more tech savvy, and their expectations are also getting, they want it faster, they want to get cured. They think, the doctor is, the God, and he just has to do it. I mean, he or she has to just do it. So, in terms of expectations, I think there could be unrealistic factors over there. And therefore, in terms of mitigating all this, a lot of patient education has to happen, especially with COVID, with the pandemic, which was evolving. Therefore, there was not a very, the situation was dynamic, and therefore the lot of things were changing also very much. So, that I think also creates problems in minds of patients and family. They don't know, so therefore that also creates a lot of issues when we expect quality. So from a patient perspective, there is expectation and there is experience. So if I expect and my experience is lower than my expectation, then I call it as, low quality. If I meet my, the meeting is happening, so my expectations and experience are okay, then I say it was okay. But very rarely the delight part, where I expect it to be, less, but my experience is so great, probably is very difficult to achieve in healthcare. Unfortunately so. Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Usha. Thank you for sharing this insight. Now, based on this, Mr. Shafi, you being from the tech background, so I would request you to basically let us know that where does technology can help us or the healthcare providers in actually creating a better patient experience and managing the expectations of patients?
Yeah, thanks, Piyush. Good afternoon, everyone. Right, I think as Dr. Uma talked about it and Dr. Usha said, there's a huge change in terms of expectations, which has been kind of a growing day by day due to the exposure and the amount of information what they have. And similarly, with the tech being so many options available, and people also kind of come with the preconceived expectations and they kind of want it to be done. And there are digital citizens right now, right? So the only way to kind of address is adapt the technology in a bigger manner, because you can't kind of go to every patient, try to understand, am I meeting your experiences and what is your expectations are, right? And that is where the tech comes into play. How do you kind of subtly understand the expectations of different individuals and also start measuring the kind of a service what you're delivering is meeting to the levels of expectations? And whatever Dr. Usha said, if you can kind of have a technology kind of playing the role of understanding their expectations and then understanding whether we lived up to their expectations, then we know whether we are actually delivering to them. If I'm sure you cannot kind of deliver on 100% of everybody, but I think you need to kind of measure whether are you living up to the expectations of say 90 percentile or a 95 percentile. Then yes, you are overall what you are aligned to deliver versus the kind of patients, care seekers coming to you are matching, right? If there is a gap is big, that leads you to kind of analyze what actions to be taken, right? And in order to kind of measure this, that is when the tech can kind of play the role. And tech can play the role in a subtly to understand and expectations. You don't, because if you ask them directly, what is your expectations? The many is not going to explicitly communicate. But there are ways to kind of understand, right? And that is today you have a simple example, patient registration application or appointment setting expectations. One of the big issue today, especially in a COVID world, people don't want to come here and then wait for a longer period. They're kind of do. But is there a way we could kind of schedule, and if there is a delay in kind of a doctor meeting the patients, the queue is there, can we kind of proactively inform them there is a delay in a queue, so please come after 30 minutes, right? So we know that everybody wants to be treated on time, but when there is a delay kind of happen, can I kind of proactively notify them? Airlines are doing it when there is a delay today, right? Can we kind of bring that into the healthcare world and do? I'm just giving an example of one such that way, right? So there are expectations varies. For outpatient, it's different. For an inpatient, the service expectations are different. If somebody is seeking a service, that is different. So you need to kind of bring in a tech platform, which is kind of going to understand as part of your service delivery, as part of your patient service there, capture and in a subtle manner to understand this point and guide them in a manner is the only way to go, right? So you have to kind of talk to various patients and collect the data and act according to that. That is where the tech can play. There are huge advancements has kind of happened and people are adapting a technology in a bigger manner. There's a home telehealth case kind of is become practical. A lot of people are doing it. So in every places, I think you have to kind of have a tech platform, which is acting as the glue and bridging the understanding and expectation and helping you to deliver on expectation. And thus you improve your experience. This directly has a relationship to your business, right? In the end of the day, there are so many competitions coming in, even in the healthcare, despite the healthcare not being enough, but there are competitions coming inside. And you unhappy patient kind of goes to a social media and just kind of talking about it, and you don't want that to happen. So if you can kind of have a tech play within the service what we are delivering, then we have a listening mode. We listen to them, we talk to our patient, and we kind of make them satisfied and improve on their experience. Is where a tech can play a huge role in this.
Yeah, so basically technology can largely bridge the gap between the patient consumer expectations and the healthcare delivery. But I mean, I think it would not be or may not be so easier done as it is being said. I'm sure there might be certain kind of difficulties which would be there while achieving this technology enabled patient experience. So Mr. Baiju, can you please let us know that are there any bottlenecks in achieving this tech-enabled patient experience and expectations?
Yeah, Piyush. Yes, I agree that today the technology is available. It is much more matured. And we are at a better place than what it was earlier, basically. Because if you look at the way we can reach, I mean, the usage of technology, like everybody has a mobile smartphone, everybody has access to internet. They have I mean, very good experience of using the mobile applications. All those are today available, so that it is much more easier than what it was earlier. But even though, so one of the big challenge which we have seen when we are getting practically into digitizing various healthcare operations, it is related to the speed and the quality of the adoption. So when we really look at where it is getting stuck, the one important aspect is the change management. See, when you take an example of, we try to implementing a process in which is maybe an example in healthcare incident management, which you want to digitize, which people were earlier using a pen and paper. Now we are moving to a digitized mode. Now, who is the stakeholder who is going to implement that? I mean, going to use it, because their adoption, like nurses, I mean, the maximum it is the nursing staff is going to adopt it. So unless we look at, instead of just digitizing, like converting from a manual form to a digitized form, maybe giving a report, etc., that won't help to adopt it faster and adapt it to the way we want it. We have to really look at how do we design the experience? How do we look at how a nurse spend a day in a hospital? How do we ensure that this the app which is given to them, or the technology which is given to them, which is they can use it seamlessly along with their other duties? So instead of giving a big form to them, just convert it into workflow. Just get recorded only those minimal information which is there with the nurse at that point of time, and use technology, use integration, use maybe voice to text conversion. So use the variable technologies to ensure that don't use this as a what do you call data entry platform, rather than just use it as they do their work. So the adoption will be there, and then there will be any challenges to use it. The second area which you've seen is that and this is the role of healthcare IT solution providers. Like people like us has to play a much bigger role here to design the solution as per the experience of the stakeholder. Like where the hospital is looking at how a solution is to be designed, or a patient experience to be designed, looking at the patient or hearing from the patient. It is the role of a healthcare IT solution providers to look at it. People like us should look at what a nurse or a healthcare worker needs, or the clinician, who is the usage of this, what they need. Something has to be the most critical element while we designing the solution. The second thing, even though we see at some places there is a kind of it become an inconvenience because of their the tech savviness issue. It's reducing day by day, or there is sometime it is a change, because the resistance to change can be a problem. So there's a lot of things can be done, like we can look at training them, a right communication from the senior management on the leadership team about what is in it for the healthcare workers, what is in it for the patient, what is in it for the. So the big picture can be given, the training and handholding can be given, and design the solution according to the user. That if a patient is using the solution, we should look at how easily and efficiently patient can use it. It cannot be a burden to the patient. So the designing the application, designing the solution, aligning to the how the user, the stakeholder is one of the critical element. And when we miss it, it becomes extremely challenging to roll out this kind of solution to market.
Thank you, Mr. Shafi and Mr. Baiju, I mean, for sharing these insights. I mean, some way it's like at one point of time, we have that technology actually can play a very major role in enhancing the patient experience. by reducing the turnaround times, making the things proactively being done. But while there are still some challenges, that it has to be more user specific. Correct. So now moving to forward on this, you have spoken about the challenges which is being faced from an IT company perspective, that what kind of bottlenecks are there. But I'm sure there will be certainly some bottlenecks or some challenges which would be faced by the hospitals when they integrate technology at their own end. Maybe the staff may not be so much compatible. There might be certain challenge for the adaptations and other things. So my question goes to Dr. Uma. Yeah, Dr. Uma, from your experience, what do you think are the challenges when it comes to the adoption of information technology or such technologies within the healthcare system? You have been into healthcare for a very long time.
Yeah, I've been around.
And one more thing, ma'am, I would request all the participants also, now since moving forward, if they have any questions, they can please share in the chat box. We will be happy to take their questions forward. Yeah, ma'am, over to you.
So
Sorry.
I've been around 30 years and I've been seeing this journey of healthcare information technology, from very close quarters, because it's an area that I'm very passionate about. And I've also seen the challenges from both as a user, from the user side, as a clinician or from the data entry point of view, as well as from the management. So I'm going to address both of them. So the people who primarily need to enter data is the doctors and the nurses, right? So the resistance to change is because of the time that it takes to enter the data in a computer versus what they're used to in writing. Whether you can read it or not is secondary. So let's say the speed of execution of a task is very important. The method in which they execute that task is also very important. So what you're used to, your comfort level, you don't want to move out of your comfort zone and to do something. Now, this has been a challenge for a long time. But what is happening now is that more and more softwares are coming up with structured data fields. We have speech to text and easy voice recognition softwares available, and so that is making it easier for people to enter the records. One good thing that happened, and all along the doctors also had this feeling that how is it going to help me? Like they would not be, easy. It is not easy to convince a doctor or a nurse to know that, okay, this is actually helpful. But one good thing that happened in the pandemic is adoption of digital technology. If for anything COVID has been good, it is for digital technology in healthcare. Okay, so that's one good outcome of COVID. And, so that because of sheer necessity, and the doctor did not want to be in front of the patient, they did teleconsultations, they entered the record because it was necessary, and so on and so forth. So that happened. So suddenly there is a realization that yes, there are benefits. Now let me go to the other side of when now the users, maybe they are ready to use, but what happens from the hospital management side, who has to buy this technology and who has to continue. Now for them, the world is becoming more confusing. First, they have some legacy systems perhaps, which are not upgradable. They bought it thinking something, and now that function is perhaps, too obsolete. So it's not possible to now adapt to the newer requirements. So that's one. So you spent a lot of money and now you're required to spend more money. COVID or no COVID, hospitals are always resource strapped, and with COVID, they are more resource strapped in terms of income. So the revenues are far less. They cannot invest in something which is not looked at as something beneficial directly in patient care. When you look at buying a surgical equipment versus a new software, you would go for the surgical equipment. That's how the thinking is, because software is not considered important enough in patient care, at least not in the conventional sense. So that is one. The other thing is, even when you have, so many of the people in the management who have to select the right software do not sufficiently know about how to select the software, what to look for. Do you look for features of interoperability? How do you make sure that your lab system and your clinical system talk to each other? How do you make sure that your HIS and and EMR, they may be different solutions, but you can interface all of that stuff. They do not understand the nuances. Worse still, the financial modeling of getting a software. If you get a licensed model, you are stuck, because for every change of a comma or a full stop, you pay millions afterwards. So you continuously have incremental expenses. You never saw it coming, and you just do not know how to provision for it, because you don't know what suddenly the change will be. And so therefore, companies which have a SaaS model for finance, yes, it's a good partnership model, but when most of the times when an IT company gives you a product, if you see the contract, it reads like a PhD thesis. By the time you've gone through from the first to the last page, you have forgotten where you started from. So these are all the challenges that you find that are there in adopting the technology. So that is, of course, so that is what I want to say. So it's not at one level, it's not just the user, it's at all levels. So the solution has to be found for everyone, for each of these points.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. So maybe I'll come back to Mr. Shafi on this later. Yeah, so ma'am, you just spoke about basically that what kind of skill gap we have right now. The environment currently calls for a huge adaptations. The technology is changing so fast and we cannot escape it. We have to adopt technologies. But yes, it's easier said than done, because changing ourselves, getting adapted to new technologies may vary depending upon the age factors and the kind of work profile we carry on. So Dr. Usha Manjunath, ma'am, I would request you to please tell us about that, how challenging it is for adapting to these kind of technologies by the healthcare providers, and if they have to do it, which is a mandate as of now, what skill set they should be carrying on.
Yes, I mean, Dr. Uma put it across very well. From the user perspective, especially doctors, nurses to hospital administrators. So now, as the people who work in the healthcare are getting younger and younger, obviously, there is a little bit of that tech savviness or the lack of fear, so to say, to use technology. So the adoption for, let us say, the generations, the present generation or the millennials or the, Gen Z is probably going to be little more faster. So the outlook that I take is that, yes, so far we have had a lot of challenges, but, COVID gave a little fillip to it. It improved because there was no other go, then we had to adapt a little bit better. And there is now the new generations which have, who have grown up with technology probably would bring a little, better approach. Say, for example, the young doctors who join, the young, clinicians, the nurses, they probably are, already adapting as they grow in schools and colleges and so on. So that would, to a certain extent, definitely reduce it. But what is the challenge that goes into really adapting is, again, their own education. Say, how the medical education looks at it. So there is going to be a lot of these time lags. So in my medical education or nursing education or even administration, hospital administration education, there could be a lot of these, time lags. Say we haven't adopted that to, the medical education itself. So the hospital, the medical college hospital may not have adopted it. So, there would continue to be this kind of a time lag, which means that there has to be a multi-pronged approach to really see how this can really change the scenario. Because at the hospital level, we saw how this is happening. At the next level is like to constantly work on the education part. So the new people, new management programs for healthcare, even medical education and so on, has to really, continue to really adapt and, change very fast in their educational programs, curriculum, what kinds of experiences they give and so on. So that is one aspect which would probably will reduce this time lag, but it will continue for a short while. But like I said, the government. So now the government is also very proactively looking at, what are the things. Say, for instance, before, telemedicine was not a, very easily adapted one, but a lot of people adapted during COVID. And, in 2020, the government came up with guidelines, because writing prescriptions on, like a telemedicine format or a, in that format was not acceptable. So now they brought in an, kind of guidelines and act to support that. So there has to be a, multi-pronged approach, from the part of, let us say, the, providers and the healthcare providers themselves, and from the then education to the patients themselves. That's also very important. Then medical education, or paramedical and all aspects of education, and how they can really prepare the new people into it, and how the government really provides various support for, from the perspective of regulations, supporting from various guidelines, as well as pushing for technology. All this has to happen. And one positive thing that I look at is, even though, in many ways in healthcare or investments and others, India has been lagging in these innovations and technology things. I think looking at the number of startups, the people who are trained from technology perspective itself has been very positive for us. So we are ready to, as a country, we are ready to innovate. We are ready to experiment much faster than many of our own Western counterparts, maybe the developed nations, maybe. So I see a positive ray of hope, and I think that is where I would look at it from, how do we adopt from, multi-stakeholder perspective.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. In the meanwhile, I've got one question from one of the participants that relates to Mr. Shafi and Dr. Uma, what she has specified. So Dr. Uma spoke about the challenges from the hospital perspective, that what challenges they face when it comes to integration of technology. So that question basically talks about, Mr. Shafi, that in this case, how does a hospital can ensure that the smooth integration of technology can happen within the hospital sector? Like basically when it comes to the challenges which hospitals are facing. So from the IT firm perspective and from hospital perspective, what is the best way to integrate the technology into the system so that it benefits everyone?
Yeah. Thanks, Piyush. Let me answer that. Before that, thanks, Dr. Uma, for very clearly sharing a multidimensional view in terms of what is going in from a hospital management side in terms of the technology adoption and challenges. I think you kind of very clearly give the points. I just want to kind of share a few points here on that context, which is also will address the question we got, Piyush. Number one is the build versus earlier, the hospitals were building a software by giving their own requirements, saying that my process is different, my process is unique, I want it to be done in this manner, right? There's some got it done at a certain cost, some kind of bought some software and then modified. And that is an era I think is more or less is coming to an end. So now people are looking to kind of buy a standardized software in terms of an HIS or EMR platform. It could be now the platforms also evolved to dynamically adapt to the hospital's need. Rather than hospital adapting a thing, the platform technology is kind of evolved to adapt to the hospital needs in a very faster manner. So that way, so now more and more new platform, what you get, hopefully will not go through the issue of it is getting obsoleted, not upgradable. I think that's the this current generation of software will address that concern in a big manner. And similarly, now that we are kind of building a software for a more hospitals in a standardized manner, this is also driving down the cost in a huge way. Because earlier, a simple software for a patient feedback was kind of costing some X. Now with the kind of going a SaaS model, in a shared model in the monthly subscription, you could kind of get it in the fraction of that X today. And second one is that you adapt it for a quarter and then see whether it is really giving you a benefit or not. Does it kind of fitting into your organization scale of things? And then decide whether I want to go it or not. So those options are much more easier today because earlier, yes, it does take a time and investment for it in terms of time investment, but from a financial perspective, now software vendors are also trying to kind of a de-risk on both the sides. And that's another one which is kind of a constantly happening. We sincerely hope that this kind of also gives the confidence to the hospital management to kind of explore this and without kind of getting it locked, because the decision, I don't know whether all parameters are addressing or not, right? And that is where we are kind of looking at it, going to a SaaS model, going to a monthly subscription, or try for a quarter. And then that's the thing which is kind of an evolving, right? That's the second one, which is driving down the cost, which is also benefiting them. But similarly, a software provider like us, we do get benefited because there's a lot of feedback comes inside and there's a larger adoption happening. Earlier, the adoption, say it's a 5%, now we are looking at can the 40-50% can adapt it. So the volume kind of goes up. That's the part. And there's another important realization that I can't do everything, right? So we are, as an HX Central, we are specialized on healthcare digitization, and we don't do HIS or EMR. We don't do an ERP. It's very clear. We don't have a roadmap to do it. Even the next 3 years, we will not touch those areas, right? So that means that, but in a hospital setup, you will have an HIS and EMR, you will have an ERP. And similarly, so that means that we have to kind of adapt to a standard where I can coexist with a specialized HIS or an EMR. Can I coexist with then this? So globally, the standards have kind of evolved, not just about an HL7, but there are other integration standards have come in. So which is safe and secure, and that is what product players like us are providing it. So right in most of the installations, what we have, we integrate with an HIS. So each of them are a different HISs, but we integrate with them in a manner without any challenges. So we confidently commit. So right, so that way now the integration is also kind of become simpler. The same integration probably about 4 years back or 5 years back, it would have been a humongous task. They are not opening up. Everybody was having a closed software because they don't want to coexist with somebody. So if you want to kind of buy a Philips, then you want it to be a Philips house. You want it kind of a GE, you want it to be a GE house. I think that has changed. Now even the bigger vendors are opening up for a startup like us and coexist, right? So that's the another one. Another important thing is about, are we delivering a value? Now every software provider like us, we ask them, like Dr. Ma'am said, if it is not part of a patient care and then this, there will be hesitancy to invest, right? You invest on a surgical, then the software. Now we also ask is, are we contributing to them in terms of a business growth, in patient experience? Are we kind of getting into that line? If you are not getting into the line, good to do software, you don't have a future, right? You must be part of their operations, either improve an efficiency, tangibly show it to them. And those are the things now every player is kind of looking at it. Are you kind of tangibly able to demonstrate the value in a 3 months of time frame? Not, you can't say after 1 year, 2 months, 3 months, you should start touching the outcome, right? Be it a safety or an efficiency, or in terms of an experience or a feedback. Those are the various parameters with respect to digitization, what I'm talking about it, right? So this is where the software vendors are also kind of scaling up to meet the hospital management needs and also to coexist and integrate. Hopefully, ma'am, in future, you may not need to replace because of this integration need, and vendors like us are very, very conscious, and then we want to make sure that we also upgrade and then maintain it and support it, ma'am.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Today things
Uma,
are
ma'am?
much better. Yeah, today things are much better. And what is also driving to the point is that what most hospitals today want is an off-the-shelf product which does 80% of the job. See, what we have to understand is that the hospital processes, 80% of them, or in fact 90% of them, are common. I mean, you should check with Dr. Usha and all that. They're teaching the same thing to everybody, and they're going to, the students go to all hospitals, different hospitals, they work the same processes. What is different and individualistic about a certain hospital? Maybe just 5 to 10% max, okay? And that should be something which is kept configurable. You know, not so much that some development has to do and it has to cost a lot of money and all that stuff. So, but if you can get 80 to 85% of the game right, and straight away you get an off-the-shelf product within a month or two, just like you said, it is implemented and the journey starts. See, the entire adoption process of every single module and every single element might take a whole year. But if you're getting most of your things right, I think the hospitals are happy to adopt. There is no doubt about it. More and more people will adopt. But as I said, the knowledge gap that there is in how to choose the right solution and how to really make it work for you, there is still a knowledge gap. And I think that is something that needs to be covered. And the gap also exists in the medical colleges and the nursing colleges where we don't teach digital technology. I know some colleges there, like AFMC, I know is completely digital in education. Every student has a laptop, everybody is taught, everything. I mean, but there are very few colleges that have taken that road. But over the next 5 years, I expect almost all the medical colleges to really, start to do that, and nursing colleges to start investing. So that's, as I said, when the schools are going digital, everything else will also go digital. So there is, light at the end of the tunnel, definitely. So we are looking at a brighter future in terms of digital, definitely.
Thank you, Doctor.
Yeah.
I think we are exactly on the path, trying to kind of standardize as much as possible and do that. So hope we live up to the expectation of the hospital management like yours.
So standardization and a bit of customization. That's what call for a true solution. Correct.
That's an agile software.
Okay. So before I move forward, I have another question with one of the participants, that as we have on the similar lines we have discussed that post-COVID, the uptake of healthcare IT has gone drastically up. But are we really sure that things like teleconsultation, online, they are going to stay in the healthcare for a very longer time? And will the smaller players, the nursing homes, the smaller medical centers and smaller mid-sized hospitals, will they also be looking for adoption of such technologies like HIS and other tech platform we are talking about?
So let me take this question. The answer is yes. Okay. The degrees may vary. So what will happen is when there is a lockdown, well, there is nothing but teleconsultation. But as the lockdowns ease off, patients will start coming to the hospital. So the numbers start to go less. But they're still more than what it was in pre-COVID times. And many hospitals have actually started teleconsult only in the COVID times. But this is definitely going to stay because the patients experience the ease of it. The patients experience that it is not necessary to travel to such a distance for such a short consultation, where it is not necessary to have a face-to-face meet. And it's an audio-video consult. It is, it is recognized. And the doctors are happy because now, after the telemedicine practice guidelines, it is legal to charge for it. So earlier, before the telemedicine practice guidelines happened, why was telemedicine, why did it take 20 years for it to become popular? It's not COVID. It's the fact that you can charge for it. Before that, you could not charge for it. If there was a charging mechanism for it before, it would have been popular even before. So COVID enhanced the adaptability, but doctors, see, if there was no method to pay for the services, I don't think that in the COVID era also it would have grown so much, right? It is necessary. So that was a very key thing, legalization of payment for teleconsult. Just 1 year before that, in 2019, there was a doctor in Bombay who was penalized for advising a doctor on phone, or for advising a patient on phone. Okay, so this was, we have come from there, and in 2020, we have adopted and made it legal. So that was a key change. Yes, telemedicine will stay. The smaller hospitals will. And all that, and you can have more new patients rather than have a lot of old patients. Old patients you deal on telemedicine, less time spent, off working hours, lunch hours and convenient hours for the doctors and patients. And during the working hours or the peak hours, take your patients. Better business, more revenue for you. So it's a model that is changing also the entire revenue cycle of the hospital. So that is definitely therefore going to stay. How the hospitals slowly adapt and come to this, that is for each hospital or the healthcare organizations to follow. What has happened also is a lot of telemedicine solutions, and not all of them practice it in a legal format. WhatsApp chats and things like that. The patient data safety, security can be compromised. all of that. Some of that has to, sort of get settled. So this ecosystem is going to go through a turbulence for a while before the stability sets in. The guidelines need to improve further. Right now, it's very rudimentary, it is incomplete, and there is a lot which is not being addressed. So the telemedicine practice guidelines need to improve further. And after that, there will be a stability in the system, and it will become a regular stream of medicine, a regular department in most hospitals, which already is, in fact. So it is here to stay, undoubtedly.
Yep. Thanks, Doctor. I think you articulated very clearly your experience says. So from what we also seeing, Piyush, we are kind of getting in inquiries from a smaller hospital because they also want to kind of compete with the biggies on tech side, right? So it's not going to be only a biggies kind of getting adapted the technology one, even a smaller setups, they also want to be in a position to kind of compete, and they don't want to kind of obsolete or lag on this technology adoption drive. So they also kind of are looking for it, but with the SaaS solutions being available and makes them in terms of cost of entry barrier much more lesser. So it's not that it's have to be huge. The solutions kind of depending upon if you're big, then the cost of entry is different. If you're smaller, a clinic, your cost of solution also is cheaper to kind of do. So that way we are seeing that even smaller clinics are looking for how do I get an experience, measure the experience, and how do I ensure the safety part of it. And they're also trying to get into any certifications so that legally they're kind of compliant to the various standards. So they're kind of looking to adapt the technology itself so that they can be lean and mean, but still they could kind of do all the aspects of it. And there, so this is going to be even not just support the technology adoption to be a big hospital era only. I think it is going to be a phenomena of even a smaller clinics, and everybody will have to kind of come on board. And it, as Dr. Kumar said, it is about a convenience, it's a revenue mode, and also it's a matter of survival in the future. If you don't do this now, at some stage, you will probably be lagging the biggies in the journey towards the digitization.
True. So I think going forward, we could expect a lot of change in the kind of healthcare models we have as of now, a lot of revolution being happening at all levels of healthcare delivery models. I mean, there would be more implication of technology into every level. Even the smaller players would be adopting technology for enhancing the patient experience.
Absolutely.
And that is something which has to be done as of now. Now, on the same lines, Mr. Baiju, I think that question I will put up to you. We have one question from our participants that considering all these things, the changes we are expecting going forward, the role of technology getting into healthcare more and more day by day. So are we still in need of internal server for data storage in hospitals? Like since cloud storage has taken the main stage now. So is there somewhere any specific need for internal storage also in hospitals?
Almost all the cases it is no. I mean, it depends on how the overall IT is planned for the entire hospital. So we can see there is two ways people are using it now. It's very rarely hospitals have their own data center and their infrastructure, storage, etc. Either it will be a privately hosted in a cloud provider like maybe Azure, Amazon, or whatever is the best available for them, or they will directly subscribe to the available SaaS channel. Because no, it's the maintaining the IT that itself is it's a big pain, and that needs skills and that needs resources, and unless there is a scale of it, it is extremely difficult to manage. So a very large chain of hospital may maintain a private cloud. That still it is managed by the service provider, but they may be dedicated to one. But otherwise, most of the people will look for a cloud offering, because we would see that a lot of clinics, they just go for a clinic management solution on a SaaS model. Feedback management solution, they just want to consume from the cloud. People don't want to implement and integrate with HAS, etc. So I think every new procurements, I think there is a it maximum moves to the cloud and SaaS model. So the on-premise infrastructure requirements will come down drastically.
Yeah,
but we will still have sorry, just to add one more point, the geo-based restrictions. Basically, maybe every country have their restrictions on keeping their data into their the same country or the same region. So that is something which because we may not be able to give a cloud services to a country which is not part of that the group or something which is recognized on that. So every provider may have to have their data centers or cloud offering for that particular geo or particular country.
Yeah, can I, I think listening to, so much of technology as well as from the hospital side, I just want to interject at this point, since I have to leave. I would, the discussion is going on so well. I would like to say that from a training perspective, we are very fortunate to have, various collaborative efforts, which helps us to train our students. So what we heard from Dr. Uma ma'am now and from Shafi and Baiju, with our collaborative work with IHMR, we are also, constantly trying to see how to help our students really have a jump start. So we are very fortunate to be really collaborating with so many, organizations and train our students. And I'm sure the participants and, everybody will gain. I will go back and listen to the rest of the, discussions. It's been very interesting. So I think, again, to say that the young management students, whether they are coming from, various backgrounds and, they need to learn all that we have been discussing. And so IHMR is really poised to really do that well. And thank you, Dr. Uma ma'am and Baiju and Shafi. And of course, Piyush, please carry on your discussions and further proceedings of this. I will be leaving now. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you,
That's
ma'am.
great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Again. Nice to have you here. So,
Yeah,
Piyush,
so
I want to comment on this
Yes, ma'am.
aspect of the
yeah.
Okay. So my view is that when a hospital starts transactions in cloud depend largely on the amount of data that you transact and what is the cost advantage that you have having internal versus cloud storage. To begin with, when you are starting and when your transactions are not that many, then your transaction cost on cloud exceeds what it would be or your internal data storage cost. But when you have so much transaction that it is cost efficient to have storage on cloud, you move to. This is something that you would do in a planned manner. So that's one. The other thing is that whether to have a private cloud for a hospital or a shared cloud. Now, yes, for economy, a lot of hospitals do go for shared cloud space, and it many times there are issues that there may be an issue of patient confidentiality compromise or patient data security compromise. And that fear, because see, as a hospital provider, we do not understand healthcare IT. Let me tell you very, clearly that I may understand what is my requirement. My requirement is patient data should be secure and it should be maintained confidentially. But do I understand the nuances of how the particular provider of a service on cloud is maintaining the privacy and confidentiality of my data? No, I need an expert in cybersecurity guide me to that. Has the Indian healthcare industry matured to have cybersecurity consultants advise them on this? No. It is expected from a hospital administrator to understand this and to maintain this. If there is a breach of a patient's data confidentiality, who's hanged? The person who's in charge of the hospital has to bear the cross, right? So as long as some of these legalities on this are not sorted out, and we do not mature in terms of cybersecurity, I think the understanding that the hospital managers and the administrators will have, or the IT managers the hospital will have, is this great ambiguity around how to maintain the data security and confidentiality. Of course, the PDP bill, the health data security bill, all those things are, trying to apparently ease off and clarify what we need to do. But what it does not clarify is who will do it. It still puts the onus on a doctor like me who's running a hospital who has zilch idea about all this, right? So, so you can imagine what is, so the whole question of how will you plan, whether you will go on a cloud or something. So somebody sells me an app and says it's sitting on a cloud, and I say, okay, I'll take it. Do I know where is the data? On analytics, at the end of the day, it's going somewhere in the US, it's getting analyzed. The guy who's selling me the software has no clue. So, I mean, there are many things like this. And these apps are, a dime a dozen in the market. You take one app like that and you have everything else which is secure, you have compromised the security of your entire data, internal or cloud storage, immaterial, isn't it? So that understanding is very limited. So, I mean, it's getting more and more complex by the day. We did not need to know so much before. I mean, 20 years ago, we did not know these terms. Now we know. And there is a lot more to learn,
Absolutely.
isn't it? So this is what I wanted to share. I mean, the concerns that I have about, I mean, thing is, black and white here. There's still so many shades of gray.
Yes, and absolutely, doctor. I think you're very clear, especially the concerns around the cybersecurity and data security is of a big concern for everyone. And it is going to be there for some more period before it kind of gets much more matured. And I think there is a standards also have to evolve, which have to kind of make it black and white in terms of fixing an accountability. I think the accountability cannot be with the hospital administrator for selecting. It has to be probably where I would say will be about a joint one. And that's where the things will have to do, because otherwise then the confidence level will go up for them to kind of choose. As you said, you can kind of do everything. One small app can open up the entire thing and kind of jeopardize the stuff. We have seen it in the other industries, and the same concern I think is very, very applicable here. And here the data security is a much more intense.
So I want to just give you one example. So like, if let's say I discuss with any IT solution provider and I tell them that, okay, when we are going to be subject to audit, I would want you to open your system to audit and answer all questions on cybersecurity.
Yeah.
They are not happy with it, and they don't sign up for it.
Okay. So
now that is to me a concern, because I do not know that by using the software, let's say if I was going to sign up with you, I do not know where the server is and what do you do with that data and how do you store it. I have zero idea. So if my auditor needs to come and see your server and audit you as my partner, you need to be subjected to audit, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So that clarity nobody has, and that contract nobody is willing to sign, which is my concern. That look.
Yeah, I think it's evolving, ma'am. I would.
Yeah. So I'm just putting this to a larger thing, because what we are discussing is futuristic and what are the future requirements and where the law needs to go. And what are the requirements of the industry? Absolutely.
Just to kind of add, there are certain security standards that are evolving with respect to the cloud hosting standard securities and an ISO 27K with respect to the data center and related securities. And we are kind of looking to kind of, as a provider like us, one is to kind of get ourselves certified. This is to ensure that we are kind of taking measures to kind of secure the data, the process and things like that. And absolutely, we must be kind of open to kind of for an audit by any customers whom we kind of is sharing them. Yes, there have to be a decided in terms of notification timeline and things like that. But as you said, ma'am, it will evolve, but probably in a year down the line, you will see whatever you're asking for. I think players like us will be more than willing to sign up and then say, yes, we are transparent for it. Even today, we have a dedicated model where we sign up for this directly even today on this front. But in a shared model, yes, we are kind of telling them that there are other customers' data also sitting in. We probably may not give you then access. That's the one part we are kind of having. But I think in future, that will also change, where you will be able to kind of audit the entire data by yourself, even in a shared model, ma'am. I think that's a very valid point.
So I think Piyush has dropped off.
I think he probably may.
Network issue.
That's
like the biggest.
I am Pradeep Kumar, who is working as an assistant professor. I am the one who has this question. Still, see, there will be some, if in hospital for a smooth functioning, the data should be available in internal server. If internet fails or any issue happens, in that case, this cloud will not function so effectively. So what is your suggestion on this?
So you are right.
Am I
Yeah.
audible now?
So
Yeah,
Yeah,
so we had heard about the challenges from the perspective of a healthcare IT firm, from hospital IT firm. So I was talking about a different perspective, like from the patient perspective. We have not taken up that yet. So healthcare has been for a long time, and it would be more of a human touch oriented industry or a sector, I would say, where, I mean, we cannot just evade the that human touch. But with technology, do we think really that it would be actually very, very conducive for the patients to have more of a tech-enabled patient experience managing that? Or do we have to find a midway somewhere between so that we don't lose that essence of healthcare as well? So maybe Mr. Baiju, Uma ma'am, Safi sir, so I would
We'll
request
listen
any
to
one
the
of you to
doctor
please take up
first.
that question.
okay, sure. So let me tell you that recently I was part of a program where we were judging the devices that are here to augment the telehealth ecosystem. And the number of devices that we evaluated and the I would say the amazing innovations that we have seen. We have digital stethoscope, which is being used quite commonly today. Till a year ago, you did not think of anybody listening to your heartbeat from or say across the world and making a diagnosis based on that. You have devices that can sense touch. So there are devices that are being developed to mimic what your physical experience would have been. So there are sensors being placed on a pregnant woman's abdomen to, in a rural area and maybe monitored in Bangalore or Bombay or any other place, anywhere in the world, to know whether there is fetal distress. Okay. And she needs to be, guided to an emergency delivery or whatever, labor monitoring happening very well. So these are all devices that are available today. And a lot more devices are available, are actually under trial, are in ideation, which are developing rapidly. And these are all going to, fill these little gaps to make this entire process of teleconsultation much more than just an audio video consultation. So the digital health experience will be now from the doorstep. You can do a lot of things where you do not need to go to a physician. Having said that, this gives you enough inputs for a physician to say, hey, look, you need to come. And they can then decide which patient needs to come. So there has to be an optimization of the entire process. It will happen, but it is on a track. It is on that track where a lot of devices are coming to fill this gap between a pure audio video and a touch and feel by the doctor. And that is, I mean, to me, it's a great positive sign, and the kind of innovations that I've seen, which a lot of people have designed, are marvelous. Yeah, so over to Shafi and Baiju.
Yes, doctor. I think that innovation is continue to evolve. I think it will evolve rapidly because there is something what I call as a base tech ecosystem that is in place, which is your connected and your sensor ecosystem, connected ecosystem, and those underlying components are kind of an evolved. You have an artificial intelligence, which technology is fairly in advanced stage where you could kind of it can sense the data, learn from the data to kind of predict, right? These are what I call it as the technology blocks. And those blocks have kind of matured. Probably 10 years ago, these blocks were not very solid. Right now, since those blocks are there, now people are connecting these pieces together to come up with an innovative solution. And this, you will see a more real solution rather than just about a proof of concept kind of a model. So we will kind of see a lot more hitting in, which is going to enhance the patient experience, the way they are kind of getting treatment, and their kind of the comfort is going to kind of increase. And more and more people are going to listen to those feedbacks in a right manner and then kind of see how to take actions. So the holistic improvement will happen from all sides. It will also improve healthcare provider side, because they will also be able to kind of have a better experience on the board. So we talk a lot about patients, but healthcare experience provider side, there are a lot of stakeholders whose things also will improve in the process.
Yeah. And there was a question that somebody asked about internet outage, and I think it's important to address because there are a lot of places in our country where internet is stable and we do have bandwidth issues. So, I mean, what one always advocates is that you cannot just have one storage. You need to have your DR mechanism in place, which means that you will have an alternate storage, okay? Because you cannot afford to lose any data for that matter. For areas of low bandwidth, see, because you may either have no bandwidth or low bandwidth periods at such time. If you have such a system, if you have such internet issues or connectivity issues, you need to have a local server, which may be of small capacity for a temporary data storage, which then gets, transferred to cloud or wherever it is, whatever be your larger storage mechanism is. And you know which are the patients and for how much time you need that. So you have an idea because you are working in that area, you know what time you need to arrange for that. And in many places, what people do is that they will do intermittent uploading of data, once a day, or they store in a disk and go to another place, upload on cloud or whatever it is. So there are many hybrid models that you can look at. What you need to do is you need to literally work on cost-effective storage mechanisms and to manage the kind of disasters that you can have. I mean, the smallest disaster is your internet shutdown for brief periods of time. So that's what I would suggest. Baiju and Shafi, I would take your technical viewpoint on this as well. I'm like a non-techie talking tech.
But you want to add?
You're absolutely right. There is some areas which we could see there is it addressed in a little different way, specifically a user level. User level, we could see that the app itself will work as an offline. Suppose example, now the connectivity perspective, when I connect, when I have the app ready, I have the my application ready, I can keep operating. Even in case if there is a lag in the network connectivity, or if there is no connectivity for some time, still we can still operate it. And when I connect, automatically flush the data. So the one way of we would see the way the things are getting evolved is the application. Earlier it was happening only for something called native application. Now there is something called a progressive web application. The new gen applications also it supports that. So this is a one good change, but this is more from a end user device to and especially when you use a mobile kind of devices. Right. But ma'am, you're absolutely right when it comes to a centralized storage. Yes, the hybrid solution is something which is
like say if you have a hospital, like say if you have a 50-bedded hospital in a rural area, and where your internet keeps going or your light keeps going, then you need to find some solutions.
Absolutely.
Not everybody is living in, have the luxury of 24-hour bandwidth, good bandwidth. Now, in fact, nobody has that luxury. It just keeps dropping off.
In terms of this.
Right.
So thank you, everyone. So that was really interesting. And as we are heading towards the closing of the session, we are just almost like 5-6 minutes away from the scheduled time. I would request the HX Central team, Mr. Shafi and Mr. Baiju, to just give a brief about their platform before we wind up this session, so that we all can actually understand and how practical it is being possible.
Thanks, Piyush. Can I present my screen?
Yeah, please.
I have a small PPT to run.